A boy was born in a town that didn't want him. His father was a ghost, and his mother was everything. Teacher, caretaker, lover. At least, that's how he described her in the letters they found. He lived in a crumbling house at the end of a forgotten road, the kind of place that disappears from maps on purpose. And when they finally opened the floorboards, they realized the truth wasn't just buried, it was growing, breathing, waiting to be found. Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. In the heart of rural Virginia, where the fog settles low and the trees seem to whisper warnings, there stands a house long stripped of its name. The locals called it the Vine House, not because of plants, but because of the family that lived there, twisted, clinging, interwoven in ways that defied nature and law. The boy's name was Ellis Vine. He was born in 1912, though no birth certificate was ever officially recorded. What we know of him comes from two sources: the school teacher who swore he only showed up for 1 year, and the caretaker of the town's church graveyard who claimed the Vines buried their own dead. No one visited the Vine House, and the Vine House never sent anyone out. Ellis was said to roam the woods shirtless, even in winter. Wild hair, blank eyes. When spoken to, he only whispered, mostly Bible verses about sons and mothers, but what frightened the children most wasn't how he looked. It was how he talked about his mother. He called her the Virgin Queen. He said she slept with angels, and that her blood had never mixed with a man's. People thought it was religious mania, until she died, and that's when things unraveled. In 1949, after 2 decades of silence, a state official was sent to investigate the property. The town claimed she had passed peacefully in her sleep, but when they arrived, Ellis refused entry. He was 37 years old by then, living alone according to records, but her bed was still made, her clothes still washed, her toothbrush damp. The officer returned with a warrant. What they found behind the boarded doors was a nest, not a home, and at the center of it was Ellis, holding a photo of his mother as a young girl. The back read only, "To my Ellis, from the first day you were mine." The Vines had no known relatives, no cousins, no uncles, no witnesses, just the house, the woods, and the rumors. In a town that recorded every harvest, every baptism, every sin, there was almost nothing written about them, as if the Vines had lived outside of time or beneath it. But something surfaced after Ellis was taken in, a forgotten ledger from the 1880s kept by the town's first doctor. Inside, in cramped handwriting, was a note. Monsieur Vine, 16, pregnant, refused father's name, eyes unfocused, told me child was the return. We believe Monsieur Vine was Ellis's grandmother, or perhaps even his mother, if the birth records had been obscured. But what's clear is that the idea of rebirth, of bloodlines looping back into themselves, was central to the Vine family's beliefs. There were whispers, too, about the Civil War, about a Confederate soldier who returned from the dead, not to his unit, but to his sister's arms. Locals remember stories of a child born 9 months after the war ended, a child with a limp and a knowing gaze. Every generation of Vines seemed to continue the same pattern: isolation, secrecy, obsession. No one remembered a Vine marrying outside the family, and no one ever saw more than 2 at a time. That's what chilled the investigators most, because inside the Vine house, they found 3 beds. One was small, a child's, left untouched for years. One belonged to Ellis, and the last, the largest, had sheets worn thin by decades of weight, but only one set of footprints ever appeared in the dust around it. They say Ellis never cried when questioned, not even when they took the photo away. He just said, "She loved me, more than life, more than heaven." The investigators thought it was grief, but the forensic psychologist who interviewed him saw something else. She said Ellis didn't grieve his mother like a son. He grieved her like a widower. The house was a tomb of silence, sealed not with nails, but with devotion. No television, no phone, no clocks. Only a Bible with dozens of pages torn out, the Song of Solomon entirely missing, and a series of strange, hand-bound notebooks hidden beneath the floorboards in the master bedroom. At first, they thought they were diaries, but as they read, something became unmistakably clear. They were love letters, written from Ellis to his mother, and from her, back to him. They were never mailed, never meant for anyone else's eyes. Each page was soaked with longing, possession, and a twisted lyrical adoration that left the room cold even in summer. The handwriting alternated between neat cursive and trembling scrawl. Some pages were signed only with initials, others had no signature at all, only phrases like "bone of my bone" and "let no man separate." One letter dated 1934 reads, "Last night I saw the moon in your eyes again. You said I would never have to leave you, that even death would not part us. I have bled for you. I would bleed again. Every night you press your face against mine, and I forget that God is watching." Investigators debated whether this was the product of shared delusion, folie à deux, or something far more physical. The autopsy had already revealed the mother died of natural causes, likely a stroke, but a private coroner, hired off the books, noted something else. Her pelvis had signs of repeated injury over the years, not from falls, from childbirth, multiple times, but no birth certificates, no graves, no records of other children ever born, except for Ellis, and possibly someone else. Because among the letters was one unsent envelope, dated 1929, addressed to "my second." It read, "I couldn't keep you, your cries would have brought them, but know this, you were born of love, not sin. Your brother will carry the name, but you, my heart, were the soul." No infant remains were found, no names, but the town began to whisper again. Because just a few miles away, a woman named Clara Bell had always claimed she had a twin that vanished when they were infants, a twin she remembered only from dreams, a boy with white eyes and her same birthmark. Clara Bell's story should have broken the case wide open, but it didn't. Because by then, the town had already made a decision, a quiet pact, passed down in church basements and dusty attics. Let the vines rot where they grew. No one wanted the attention, no one wanted the headlines, and no one wanted to explain why they had let that house stand for so long without interference. Some said it was fear, others called it mercy, but most simply looked away, as they always had. The town sheriff in 1950, John Weatherby, kept no written statements, but his grandson later revealed a box in his attic full of Polaroids, documents, and one tape recording never aired publicly. On it, Ellis can be heard saying, "They wanted me to leave, but she said I was born here, and I would die here. The blood in our veins was older than the town, older than names. I can't go where no one knows me." A psychologist who listened to the tape decades later remarked that Ellis's voice wasn't entirely human, not in sound but in cadence. It was sing-song, almost rehearsed, like a child reciting lullabies. The town claimed Ellis was transferred to a state hospital, but no such records exist. Officially, he disappeared in 1951. Unofficially, locals say he still walks the woods on fog-heavy mornings, calling out for his mother in the voice of a boy half his age. And the house? It burned in 1964. Arson likely. No one ever confessed. But not a single person in town tried to stop the fire. They stood and watched it fall. When state officials returned to document the site, they found something buried beneath the ash. A set of rusted baby teeth wrapped in a piece of lace. And beside it, a charm. A gold E still warm, though the fire had gone out hours before. No one spoke of the vines again. But everyone remembered. The preacher's wife left a note in her journal before her death in 1981. "It's not that we didn't know, it's that we didn't want to. We let it grow because it was easier than cutting the root. But it wasn't a root, it was a vein. What makes a person fall into a cycle so twisted, so dark, that it consumes generations? The story of Ellis Vine and his family is more than folklore. It's a grim case study in isolation, obsession, and the psychological consequences of inbreeding. Inbreeding doesn't just create physical deformities or genetic disorders, it can warp the mind, trap people in cycles of dependency and delusion. The Vines weren't just a family, they were a closed system where love and control bled into one another until no clear line remained. Ellis's letters reveal a man both desperate for connection and imprisoned by it. His mother wasn't just a parent, she was a symbol, an idol, and a cage. In the deepest recesses of their secluded world, they constructed rituals, a mythology that made their strange relationship feel sacred instead of sinister. Modern psychologists call this a form of shared psychosis, or folie à deux, where two or more people share the same delusional beliefs and feed off each other's distorted realities. It's a haunting phenomenon, one that is difficult to break without outside intervention. But what's more disturbing is the echo of these behaviors beyond just Ellis and his mother. The town's silence, the cover-up, the destruction of evidence, it all points to a collective complicity, as if the entire community was part of the same twisted belief system. If you're still watching, you're already braver than most. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done if this was your bloodline? Because the Vine family's story forces us to ask, how much of our past do we bury because we fear the truth? How many secrets lie dormant beneath the surface of history, waiting for someone brave enough or foolish enough to dig them up? The story of Ellis Vine didn't end with the ashes of the house or the fading whispers in the town. Like a shadow stretching beyond the light, the legacy of the Vines remained, twisted in DNA and memory alike. Descendants of the town's older families sometimes mentioned cousins who never quite fit in, children born with pale eyes, unsettling smiles, or strange mannerisms that no doctor could explain. Some vanished without a trace. Others were quietly sent away to institutions, their histories carefully scrubbed from public records. One of the most unsettling pieces of evidence came from a genealogist hired decades later to trace the Vine family tree. What she found was not a tree, but a tangled vine, branches that circled back on themselves, as if the family had been growing in on itself for generations. The lineages were blurred, marriages between siblings or close relatives happening quietly, accepted as normal within the household. It's a genealogy of shadows, impossible to fully trace, but impossible to ignore. And in this maze of hidden births, lost children, and erased names, the question lingers. How far can a family go before they become something else entirely? Ellis's story reminds us that family isn't always about love in the way we want to believe. Sometimes it's about possession, about control, about the desperate need to hold on, even when what you're holding is poison. And the poison isn't always visible. Sometimes it's just beneath the surface, in the eyes of a boy who loved his mother too much, and in a town that pretended not to see. The Vine family's story is not just a grotesque curiosity from the past. It is a mirror, dark and cracked, reflecting the parts of ourselves and society we prefer to ignore. Forgotten histories like this are warnings, reminders that beneath every quiet town, beneath every closed door, may lie secrets we're too afraid to face. This story challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about family, obsession, and the devastating power of isolation. It asks us, what happens when love is twisted beyond recognition, when the very people who should protect us become the architects of our prison? We remember the Vines because forgetting means repeating, because silence allowed the horrors to grow unchecked, like weeds strangling a garden, because every generation deserves to break free from the chains their ancestors left behind. And perhaps most hauntingly, because Ellis's story is not unique. There are countless others buried in attics, in dusty archives, in whispered legends, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them and listen. So as you turn away from this story tonight, ask yourself, what hidden family secrets have been left unspoken in your own bloodline? What truths have been buried deep, hoping no one will ever pry them loose? Because sometimes the darkest stories are not the ones told, but the ones that refuse to be forgotten. Thank you for watching. If this story unsettled you, leave a comment, share it with someone you trust, and don't forget to subscribe for more dark truths from the past. Until next time, keep your eyes open, because history never truly sleeps.